Good morning. How are you, Rick?
Generally, all good. All good. Just
Oh,
had a couple of disturbing nights with the full blue moon.
oh, really? Oh, you have to tell me about
Yeah.
that in a minute. First
Well,
of all, let me
yeah.
just introduce the show and say hello to everybody that's watching. So it's Louisa Munson here with lovely, wrong hand, my good friend Rick Pursell, who I love and adore, and think he's wonderful. And we've been kind of working together on and off for 12 years now, haven't we?
Yeah, it's a long time. I don't know how you put up with me for so long.
Likewise. We've done quite well, really, haven't we?
We've done extremely well.
So we're coming to you live. I'm in Portugal and Rick is in lovely Bali. There's a bit of a time difference. And who knows where you are. So let us know where you're listening in from. And also, if you've got some stories about gratitude, and obviously, if you've got any questions that come up, then please do pop them in the chat room and you can become part of our show too. So, Rick, we're talking about why should we be grateful? Or, in fact, why we should be grateful. Where would you like to
Yes.
start?
Yes. At the beginning.
Oh, okay.
What,
Go on.
what is gratitude? To be grateful. It's really to be thankful for something that has transpired, or thankful for somebody being in your life, some situation or circumstance. So gratitude, appreciation, and thankfulness are really just the same words. I don't think there's,
Mhm.
I don't really differentiate between them.
Mhm.
And from a perspective of, let's say, positive and negative,
Yep.
if we take the positive outlook on life and be grateful no matter what's transpiring, then that's going to be much more uplifting than being miserable and be feeling like we're a victim and that
Yes.
I don't want this, I don't want these circumstances. And the two of them have very different vibrational frequencies. So that's the starting point, is how do we want to live our life? Do we want to live it with some experimentation, with some curiosity, with some adventure?
Yeah, definitely.
Or do we want to be a miserable old sod and
Yeah.
and just pour negativity on all the coals, however they show up? So
Mm.
it's really it's a no-brainer, isn't it? But
Yeah.
there's a lot more depth to it, and we'll go into a little bit more of that later on.
Yeah, I'm looking
That's a
forward to
starting
diving
point.
into that. Yeah, we've got our good friend Owen Lloyd Martin joining us from northern Portugal. He's checking in. Hola.
Okay.
Hola.
Hola, hola.
Owen, what have you got to be grateful about at the moment? You know, what's high on your list of things that you are so absolutely delighted by? Yeah, so it's funny actually, because when you introduced that, I was thinking, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because the last show we did together was dealing with duality, and I tell you what, it's spawned quite a few conversations, you know, with friends, with clients. In fact, I've used some of the techniques. You know, I've shared them with some of my clients. Um, when they're dueling with duality, and I've been reflecting on it a lot. But how do the two of them slot in together? To me, it seems like if we are saying things like it shouldn't be like this, then we're not really in a state of gratitude and thanks or thankfulness.
Right. Well, in fact, we're in a state of resistance,
Yeah.
because if we are experiencing some situation and we're saying to ourselves mentally, "Oh, this shouldn't be like this," or "I don't want this,"
Yeah.
and yet the reality is presenting itself right there under our nose, right in front of us.
Yeah, it really
So
does, doesn't it?
we're pushing back against it. We're saying, "No, no, I don't want this."
Mm.
And that pushback is creating internally this inner conflict
Mm.
where we're arguing with reality. And I've tried that a few times. I don't know, I've never won yet.
Yeah,
Reality always wins.
I've not won against
So
reality either.
I gave up on that one. So resistance is not facing, not countenancing the reality that's unfolding.
Mm.
Right? So we should take it to the next level, right? And I don't mean to belittle any pain or trauma or heavy losses, because that is the reality of life.
Yeah.
Not trying to belittle that and say we should go through life all airy fairy and think, oh, life is beautiful and blah blah blah. That's not the situation there.
Yeah.
But to resist what is going is creating an inner turmoil, and that's not healthy for us. So if we could step back a little bit and review the situation and think, I've been in this situation tons of times when I didn't want something.
Yeah.
I didn't want this music. I didn't want this movie. I didn't want this book. I didn't want this food, this relationship, this job, this whatever. And yet I've survived beyond that.
Yeah.
So then we can look at that and perhaps observe what's going on there and think, maybe there's something to learn from this.
Mm.
It's just the reality that's unfolding. Maybe there's something good could come out of this. Right? Now
Yeah.
that throws a whole new energetic perspective at the situation, because we don't know what the outcome's going to be. But if we're looking at what can I possibly gain from this, what could I benefit from this crisis that's unfolding, right? So it's a shift of perspective of how we look at it.
Mm. What I'm hearing there, well, I really liked how you summed up really the show of last, the last time we got together, because yeah, resistance is a really good word for it, and how resistance creates inner conflict and inner turmoil. I've never really, I mean, it's obvious that it does, and yet I've never pieced it together in my brain that if you are in resistance, you're creating yourself a ton of conflict. But then I love, is there something that I can learn about this? Because actually, just in saying that, that to me sounds like the start of gratitude. It sounds,
That's a starting point.
yeah, it sounds like the starting point of maybe appreciation, maybe not full on gratitude, not like when you're, woohoo, life's great. And I really, actually, really quite like what you're saying about the airy fairiness that you come across, where people are almost high on hopium. It's and I do have those moments myself, and yet when you are in the middle of trauma and someone is saying, it doesn't matter, life is really, really good, at some level they're not listening to you. They're what's the word, there's a word I'm looking for, a diss something, I can't think what it is, but it's like they're denying your reality, they're denying your existence or your experience in that exact moment,
Yes.
which I'm not entirely sure that that's very helpful. We've got
Yeah.
Owen here. He's just saying, I'm grateful for waking each day, and so grateful for maintaining a friendship with a beautiful soul in the USA. Very nice.
Good.
Sounds
Very
great.
good, Owen.
Happy for
Very
you.
good.
So
Lovely.
you were about to say something before I put Owen's comment up.
Yeah, the airy fairy is usually a fantasy, or it's a phony approach to how we should be looking at life.
Yeah.
Life dishes out some serious challenges to us,
Yeah.
and we can have some serious losses in life that take us right down to grief.
Yeah.
And we can be angry and irritable and antagonistic about things because of injustices. That's the reality that we face in life. It's not the situation that occurs, it's how we look at it, how we view it. And there's nothing wrong. I cry openly, right? There's nothing wrong with crying and feeling these things, as
Yeah.
long as we're not projecting them on somebody else. If we feel angry, don't project that on somebody else. This is my anger. Right? So all of that whole range of emotions is accessible to us.
Yeah.
I would discount. I'm conscious of not allowing fear, blame, shame, and regret. I won't entertain those emotions because I don't think they they benefit me in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
But certainly grief, I can get angry at some of the injustices that are going on.
Yeah.
Right? But I contain that anger and think, what can I do about this? What could I do that could be of some value, no matter how big or small it is?
Yeah.
So, facing the reality and being grateful for an opportunity, because in essence, we as infinite beings having a human experience
Yeah.
have come to experience life. It's only the ego mind that says, oh, that was a bad experience and that was a good one. Right?
Yeah.
So now we're judging everything and creating more separateness.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of the interconnectedness of everything, seeing the wholeness in everything, we're now separating it and compartmenting it into this is good and this is bad.
Yeah.
And again, there's not separateness leads us to another place, a place of interconnectedness. But separateness, if we keep going down that track, it can lead us into a darker place, into an unsustainable place, into war and aggression and fighting and everything like that. So it's the way I try to do it is I try to keep it in perspective. I'm aware of separateness, right? And I'm totally aware of interconnectivity, connected to everything.
Yeah.
The trees, the sky, the people, the circumstances. And now I'm choosing what ratio do I want to spend my life in either of these. And the bigger ratio is in interconnectedness because I've been through a lot of separateness.
Yeah.
And it's serving me, it's leading me to the connectedness. It's rather like the ego mind shows us what we don't want through fear and separateness and superiority, which then leads us to, well, what do I want? If I don't want that, what do I want? And the opposite of fear is love. So separateness leads us to more consciousness, leads us to the interconnectivity of life. And that, I think, is a pursuit worth following.
I love that. Yes, I would agree. Well, there was so much in that to unpack. I really like how you were talking. You mentioned the emotional scale and going up the emotional scale, which I first came across, I think, with Abraham Hicks, maybe.
Yes.
Were they the people that
Yeah,
originally?
I think they sort of popularized it.
Yeah, because it's funny. What I heard there was that, when you're feeling a bit angry, you might feel, I don't know, it sounded like in what you were saying that there's a bit of gratitude. I always recognize that, if I'm feeling angry about something, I've moved up the scale from depression. Or, if I get to anger and I haven't got to depression yet, I realize that what the next step is, and it's into a pit of despair where things stop moving, So I love as I'm going back up the emotional scale. And so you're right, actually, even when things aren't going very well, when I can get angry, I realize, and I give I have gratitude for myself because I know I'm on the way up.
Yes.
And it might not be that straight. Never has been very straight with me so far. And I'm grateful for that too, because it all just kind of works out. I also really like what you said about, the sort of airy fairy. You mentioned that it's kind of a phony, a sort of fantasy. And how, like, in the same way you were talking about, like, not projecting your anger when you're in that place of anger. One of the things I thought, there's nothing worse than somebody projecting their hopium on you either. It's ew. Feels like a massive breach of my boundaries when somebody
Yes.
does
Yeah.
that. Again, it denies what you're actually going through.
Yeah. And just a little bit more on that.
Yeah,
Sorry
go on.
to cut in.
No, please do.
What we need is compassion. And
Yeah.
compassion is just seeing the person,
Yeah.
seeing what's happening for them, holding space for them, being present for them, not inwardly judging them that they're broken or damaged or stupid, or you deserve this, or you attracted
Yeah.
this. Just holding space and being there for them, and having compassion in your heart that they're going through this experience,
Yes.
and you're not trying to change anything. Not trying to make them happier, right? They want they need to process this feeling,
Yeah.
right? And our whole society is all about here, have an ice cream, right? Or let's go and have a drink, or
Yes.
let's do something to distract them. In my coaching practice for years in the retreats, if somebody has a meltdown, inevitably somebody will try and console them, and I'll just ask them, just sit down again,
Yeah.
right? And we just hold space there, right? And I will sit in front of them there. I won't touch them. I don't want anything to distract them. I don't want to put my hand on their shoulder or their arm or their hand. I just want to be present, and they allow them to cry and feel anger and whatever. And now we're really helping somebody. We're just showing compassion for them instead of trying to distract them, and that pain stays within the pain body and permeates into the physical body. It never gets healed. And
Yeah.
this is one of the problems with humanity, is that particularly with men, not so much these days with more conscious parenting, but men were told, don't show your emotions, don't be a big girl, don't be a baby, don't
Yeah.
cry, right? So we kept all that stuff inside us, and then one day, like a volcano, it just explodes, and you think, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
And it's exploded on somebody that was not, it could be 20 years in the future. And I
Yeah.
think, what did I do?
Yeah.
It's been bubbling and boiling up to the surface.
Yeah.
So we just need to hold that space and allow people to express whatever it is they want to express. And if it makes us uncomfortable, right, then
That's something for you to work on.
there's a cause. Oh, I've been triggered. I've been triggered here.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. You had
No.
something else in there.
No, that was absolutely perfect, in fact, because yeah, I do think people go into that sort of slightly phony fake, or they are really, really feeling into that person too much. I know I've in the past I've been almost too empathic or too really wanting to support somebody, and it really does stop their own progress. And it's mainly out of my own discomfort about not being able to help them.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of being not very powerful, and yet the most powerful thing to do is to sit back and observe. Well, not observe, but be there for them,
Yeah.
and allow
Yeah.
them
The
to
word
process.
sympathy comes from sympaths, which means to feel the same as.
Mm,
And if I was coaching somebody and they have a breakdown and I feel all of their emotions,
mm,
right? I'm not a coach anymore. I'm in that fellow grief state or whatever.
yeah,
So I don't want to feel the same. I want to experience and see that I'm holding space while they are feeling it. But
yeah.
I don't want to get triggered. Well, that's sympathy, and I don't believe in giving sympathy because it doesn't help.
No, it really
Not
doesn't.
at all.
And as you say that, I realize it's funny because in the introduction of this, I thought this was going to be woohoo, gratitude, let's go. And I made that sort of comparison. Well, it's a bit like the opposite of dealing with duality. And I feel like, have I taken this down a dark road? But I know this is going to kind of whip back round and kind of smack us in the face of joy. But I think this is really, really important because this, how can you feel gratitude unless it's really coming from a genuine place? I think that kind of phony experience, I don't know. I mean, I have played and later on I will talk about one of my trips up to your place, like 13 years ago, coming to one of the retreats or one of the retreat days, and how I dealt with that. I'll hold that story for a minute. But the compassion, what I liked about what you said about compassion was you said it's a place where you're not judging. You're not judging the person's experience as good or bad, because that creates
Mm.
separation. Um, And I think that's really key as well, because also with that kind of sympathy that you mentioned, at some level, you must have some judgment that the person can't sort themselves out, or they need you to sort them out. And, that's also really unhelpful.
Mm.
So loads of things have come up. Oh, and when you were talking about judgments and stupid, we had one of our sons, our 4-year-old, has started to get a bit more articulate now. And he actually said to Daddy, "Daddy, you're stupid." And we never really use that language. So we took a moment, um, you know, um, in private, we had a little giggle about it because the way he said it, it was so funny. But at the same time, in the same week, he's also started to speak of love as well. So he's starting to get really clear on judgments, and he's throwing them around left, right, and centre. So we're having fun there, and helping him through his judgments. Saying,
Mm.
"Well, hang on, who was it that upset you? I think you upset yourself," and he's actually getting that now. Anyway,
Yeah.
I took that on a bit of a derailment. So where from that little, nest of ideas, where do you want to resume this?
Well, let me be clear. If I'm in anger, right, I can hold on to that anger for the rest of my life if I
Ooh,
choose.
yeah, you
If
could.
I choose,
Yeah.
right? Um, and all we need to do is throw the light of consciousness on it. Think,
Yes.
oh, I'm really being angry here, right? Instead of just allowing this anger to bubble up and just keep going, um, I can just become aware. Oh, that's a bit of anger there.
Yeah.
How does this feel? Well, it's pretty low down the emotional scale,
Yeah.
but it is my emotions, so I need to deal with this, right? And take myself up the scale. If you've ever seen, maybe it's happened with your kids or other kids you've witnessed, they might fall off the bike or something happens and they go into grief.
Mm.
They're crying. They usually look around first
Yeah.
to see who's looking
Yes,
to
they
get,
do.
and then they're perfectly, well, not okay, but they've just hurt themselves. And in that a minute or 30 seconds, there's no response whatsoever, right? And then they look around and see mum or dad or somebody, then they start crying. Right?
Mm.
Grief is just below anger.
Right.
So the next step is they're going to get angry, and often they may lash out at you. Let me
Mm.
help you up here. No, I don't need your help, or whatever it
Yes,
is.
that's true.
And they get angry at you, and you think, you wretched little son or daughter. I would hope you don't, but
Mhm.
you're so ungrateful. I'm just
No.
trying to help you. Blah blah blah. We wouldn't
Yeah.
do anything like
Yeah.
that. But in essence, if we know the scale of emotions, we think, oh, he's coming out of grief. He's actually coming up through the emotions.
Yeah.
And then there would be anger, there'd be antagonism, and then there'd be irritability, and then there'll be boredom,
Yeah.
right? And then you get down to a sort of a more stable state. So seeing and recognizing those for myself, if I go into grief about something, um, I'm very conscious that the next step will be anger. And do I really want to be angry?
Yeah.
Is it going to help me or anybody else? I've been in grief with Julian Assange and the injustice of that on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And when
That
I'm
story
in
keeps
that,
going, doesn't
uh,
it?
yeah, I just allow this grief to come out,
Mm.
release it, right? Knowing that if I was to pursue this, I would get very angry,
Mm.
right? And it's completely out of my control. So
Mm.
what can I do? I can continue what I do and try and raise more consciousness.
Yeah.
So I am aware of those other emotions that can come up. And then so I don't go into anger. You can virtually bypass all of those and get okay, let's see how I can be constructive here.
Mhm. That's
another
really
element.
helpful, actually. You're right. In fact, we went for a moonlit walk last night at about 10 o'clock. We wanted to have a look at the extra bright moon from our beach, and so we drove down there. And within about 10 minutes, we heard this awful, like, screaming, wailing, and I knew it was one of our kids, and it's our little 4-year-old at the moment, Solomon. So he's playing with duality, he's playing with his emotions right now, and he's really quite enjoying it. But we could hear straight away that it was a real kind of like, and he kept the volume up so that all the passers-by could hear it, and he's never really done that before. But I could see he wasn't in any danger. When I got over, he was crying because he got some sand on his hand. He was beside himself. And then, he did get really angry, like, "How could it have happened? How did I lose control?" kind of thing. Yes, and then they get irritable. It's true. You can see people reflecting on what's happened, and making shifts very, very quickly. And yeah, when you allow people to be in their space, you're giving them the toolkit to learn to get through this. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, gratitude then. Let's deeper dive. Is it the right time to have a deep dive into gratitude? Is this
Yeah.
almost like laying the foundations?
Yes, I think so. And just to be clear, when you're actually in anger, right, or grief, something has to change in that sphere before you can shine the light of gratitude on it.
Yeah.
If you're really angry about something, it's going to take a lot to be able to suddenly shift that to gratefulness.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
if you are becoming more conscious of, oh, I'm conscious of that, I'm glad I know about that, right? And I'm glad I feel this way because I'm not numb, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like the psychopath that can go out and create absolute mayhem in their life and sleep like a baby. I've got
Yes.
feelings, right?
Yes.
I've got feelings. I've got emotions. I'm in touch with all the emotions that are coming up.
Mm,
So then that's usually my state. I say, oh, you're in anger here. Well, okay. Well, it's good that you express them to yourself
mm.
without projecting them. So
Yeah.
straight away, I found a couple of things. I'm in touch with my emotions, and and they're mine, and I'm not projecting. There's 3 things to be grateful straight away.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. I like the fact that you're saying they're mine, what's yours, and because it's very easy to pick up on other people's emotions, especially when we're playing sympathy games um and whatnot. And just to finish off on children, one of the things that I've observed, I'm sure you have as well, they move through things really fast.
Yes.
And you sort of alluded to that, that they might watch to see who's watching, but there is a very conscious part to them usually when they're going through these things.
Yes. Yeah. And if you are, as conscious parenting, you allow them to go through that, you don't distract them. If you give them a sweet or an ice cream or something, they'll think, "Oh, now I know how to get a sweet and an ice cream." Well,
Yeah.
and you'll get played for that one for a long time. So
Mhm.
so just allow them. I can remember when the kids were young, one of them had she was in heavy grief and then she went into anger. I was just holding her.
Mm.
I said, I'm just going to hold you until you feel better. Right? Let this grief out. Let this anger go out. Don't hurt anybody. Don't
Yeah.
hurt yourself. Don't
Yeah.
damage anything. But if you feel angry, let it out. And she was smacking on the cushion and clawing on the cushion. And all this anger was coming out, just
Yes.
frustration and anger. And after about 20 minutes, she just let out a big sigh and then just gave me
Mhm.
another cuddle.
Ah.
It- we can't really afford to interrupt that process.
Yeah. How old was she at that point?
I think she was about 2 years of age.
Wow.
Yeah, and who knows where it came from? you know, if we're into infinite beings coming into this incarnation, we're trying to learn to walk, talk, dependent on everybody. There's
Yeah.
enough frustration in that lot, whether
Yeah.
it came from a past life or even this life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think she built this up. There wasn't anything in an environment that we could identify that would have caused it, but
Mm.
there was a buildup of anger there. And it wasn't violent anger in any way, but it was, I identified it as from the grief, then she went into this anger, and it came out, never came back again. And the whole demeanor changed from that. It was noticeable. So
Yeah.
if we could just hold our kids or just sit with them, and encourage them to let it all out. Don't
Beautiful.
say any words. Just say, I'm here for you. When you're ready, you can tell me what happened, whatever it is.
That's really beautiful. Really powerful.
Thank you.
I mean, can you imagine how different your life would have been, or my life would have been, if our parents, I mean, maybe your parents are pacifists, weren't they?
They were.
If they'd done that with us. Yeah. You know, I mean, my mom and dad, you know, absolutely love me. And the only tools they had when, you know, and I did have anger as a little tot, and a frustration. I think, you know, I've seen it in one of my sons. Actually, you know, really, really early on when he was about 3, it was like, it's not supposed to be like this, you know, like dueling with reality, dealing with duality. And it was like he had a knowledge of how life was meant to be and how bodies are supposed to work. And he was really upset that he couldn't fly. And you know, I used to get angry like that too. And I learned early on that, you know, you can't do that. It's really, really bad. Yeah. So I think younger, you know, new kids coming in with conscious parents are very, very lucky. And we're really lucky to be able to observe what happens when it goes really, really well, and when
Yes.
the opportunity is there. Yeah. This
Yeah.
does feel like an unboxing going on at the moment, you know? Like, years ago, it felt like, "Keep them in that box, quick, keep them in. Don't let them get out. Don't
Right.
let them get the upper hand."
Yeah.
It feels like a great unraveling of the energy.
Yes. And in fact, in my day, not from my parents, but in my day, the catch cry was children should be seen but
Seen
not
it and not
heard.
heard. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I know that one.
Oh my God. You can imagine how many kids have just shut up completely,
Yeah.
withdrawn,
Mm.
lack of self-confidence or self-esteem to be able to speak up because
Yeah.
they've never been allowed to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, grateful for conscious parenting. Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
So, what tools do we have? There's a question. Um, how do we look at this gratitude for what's occurring? What occurring is usually something of a separate nature.
Mhm.
There is some separate nature. We have separated from our core,
Yep.
or we've separated from someone, or a circumstance, or a situation, or something, and we're feeling these emotions associated with it. So, what my practice now is catching it at a thought. I
Mm.
may have a thought about Boris Johnson's hair and
People have,
how
yeah.
ridiculous it is, right? And I catch that thought. I use that one as a joke, but I really don't think about Boris Johnson very often.
No.
Um, but use that as an example. So now I'm aware, wow, there's a judgment. Right?
Yeah.
You just separated yourself from him,
Yeah.
made yourself better because one, I don't have hair, but if I did, I wouldn't have your
Do you know
hairstyle.
what?
I would go to a different hairdresser for a
I
start.
I think you're quite suited, Boris. I was just actually imagining you with his hair. I think that would really suit you.
So I'm now able to catch myself almost instantaneously on the quality of my thought.
Yeah.
And does it contain any separateness? Is there some cynicism, judgment? All of this is coming from the ego,
Yeah.
right? Some superiority, some criticalness, whatever it is. I'm able to catch those. Well, that's a such and such, and that's now you're being separate. So now I'm using separateness to take me into the interconnectedness. And I am so grateful, right? Because without that, would I have been interconnected or feeling that sense of interconnectedness?
Yeah.
Right? Possibly not. I don't know. But we live in a dualistic world, right? Where there is hot and cold, day and night, masculine and feminine. All of those are separatenesses, but it's all encompassed in one. We are not separate from anything. Science has said that already. In quantum physics, the sages of old said everything is connected.
Yeah.
So I've just caught myself in that instant, and it disappears straight away like that. And when you sense that interconnectedness, that I am, Boris is me, I am him, he is you, we're all connected here.
Yeah.
Why would I want to judge myself as part of that? And then that's an incredibly uplifting feeling to connect to that connectedness as such, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does. And I think you give yourself another opportunity to see where you've got more judgments, because when you do realize that you are like Boris Johnson, you could also realize that you're Donald Trump. You could also realize that you're Joe Biden. And you might find that you come up, like judgments come up straight away. When you are saying, actually, we're made of the same stuff. We are the same thing. We are the same. When you're comparing yourself or connecting yourself to people that really may be expressing life in a very different way. So it is and often I sort of chuckle. I mean, I'm quite fortunate really, because Carl and I catch each other out doing stuff and we say, oh, how's that working out for you? How's that judgment working out for you, Carl? And vice versa, and we make a sort of game out of it, and it's a source of fun now. So I think it's quite helpful when you've got somebody kind of doing this with you a little bit, because they're almost like a check and balance for you, not letting you get away with any old rubbish.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure Lisa does that with you, doesn't she?
No, she would never. No, me, I'm just pure. You'd have to ask her opinion of that.
Yeah, I'm sure she's got one. I'll ask her.
So we sort of come back. I make a constant reference to it, is that in this dualistic world, we have this yin-yang symbol, right? And when we bring these two sides together, we become whole.
Yeah.
So this is where we're no longer separate. We're no longer the black side or the white side, or the white dot and the black dot. We are whole and complete. And that is the sense of the interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want the white side of the yin yang symbol, right?
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that dark, shadowy side. And while you're at it, can you get an eraser and rub out that little black dot that's in the white bit as well? Yeah. Just give me the good stuff, right?
Yes.
And a lot of our societies in that area, because of distractions, we're distracted by things that make us feel good. Right? Yeah. We dive into them for comfort. Alcohol, drugs, sex, rock and roll, social media, all makes us feel, gives us a dopamine hit, and we feel good from it. which
Yeah.
is really an avoidance of the shadow side.
Mm.
So,
I
so
really, I
bringing those
really
two
like.
together.
I loved how you were just talking there about the yin yang and how there are people that are trying to rub out the dot on the other side or the dot on their side
Yeah,
because I'm seeing that sadly I see that playing out with American politics, but you don't actually have to look far to see it in everyone's politics.
yeah,
Australia, the UK, there's been a lot of dot rubbing out going on. We don't like what you're saying. It's the whole censorship, it's the whole fact checking, it's the whole where has that come from? I mean, that's kind of very icky. One thing that I like about it is that it's making it so obvious. We get to see and experience the results when that happens, when things get out of whack, and when people try to almost create an unnatural society that is all one way, one thought, one this, one that. Yeah, funny times.
yes, yeah. And what you're saying is true. There is a lot of attention on the separateness,
Mm,
right? If you have a military industrial complex that's making billions of dollars of profit
yeah,
out of separateness,
yeah,
building arms and selling them to both sides, right?
mm,
They're not going to want to think about interconnectedness. They're
yeah,
not going to
exactly.
think about the recipients of those arms. And
Yeah,
they're not going to think about the recipients of the bullets that come out of those arms.
yeah,
So they're not connected at all to the end result. They're connected to the almighty dollar.
yeah,
And you can superimpose that on pharmaceuticals, politics, loads and loads of areas. So the balance is shifted to the separateness instead of the interconnect. We've lost sight, much of society has lost sight of this interconnectedness.
yeah.
And we need to go and sit in the park now and again and
Mm,
feed the ducks and
yeah,
walk through the forest and sit on the beach and walk along the sand to get connected to the earth and then
mm,
connected to each other. And then
yeah,
we'll start building that side up. There's an incredible imbalance at the moment. But
mm,
this is what the Great Awakening and the shift is towards recognizing that we're all connected, we're all one.
yes. I love that. Okay, it feels ready like for a gear change now. And so I'm going to share my little story of when I was
Please.
on the moped, driving from wherever it was I was living in no, oh God,
Penistana?
Penistone, up towards you. And so I was driving on these Balinese roads, and it was early in the morning, and I was really looking forward to seeing you. And yet I thought, let's try this rampage of appreciation. And I think I'd read about it in like Esther Hicks, sort of Abraham Hicks type thing. But so I got on my bike, and we take a lot of things for granted, don't we? And so I just thought, let's see what happens if I do a rampage of appreciation. So I was on my moped, and I was looking around and was thinking, what am I going to be appreciative of? And at first at the start, it felt really kind of clunky. But on my whole journey, which is about, how long would you say? Half an hour? 40
It
minutes?
would have been half an hour in those days, 30,
Yeah.
35 minutes.
Yeah, and so for 30, 35 minutes, I spent the whole journey just noticing things. And so, to make it easier, I wasn't like really noticing things about myself, but I was thinking, "Oh, that's a nice little bird. Well, what a beautiful tune. Well, I like how the sunshine just came through the leaves there." And I did that the whole journey up, and I had the most connected day ever. I mean, obviously, you and I were working together, and we had a group of amazing people around us as well. So, I mean, that also plays into it, but it really set me up for the day. And it was really, I was really transformed. And, just within about 3 or 4 minutes of doing it, I started smiling to myself, and all of a sudden, this massive flow of gratitude came out because I was noticing everything around me. And I noticed in my thinking, wow, this is a really good tool to use when I really, really need
Yes.
it. It's like bringing out the big guns, isn't it? Um,
Yes.
and why I wanted to mention it was earlier on we were talking about like the airy fairies who, you know, go into this kind of phony happiness, going, yeah, life is great. And, you know, like how Tony Robbins says, well, if you smile, it will start to grow. And I can see that there is a truth to that. And I also recognize that it's important to know when it is relevant and also when it's not. So I wouldn't advise permanently walking around with a smile on your face unless it brings you deep joy, you know, but
Yes.
yeah.
Authentic smile.
Yes.
Authentic.
Yeah. I mean, if you're having to force it your whole life, then it's obviously not working as a tool. Because if it was
Yes.
working as a tool, it would actually become authentic and real.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that day. It was a magical day, and I thought you'd been smoking those funny cigarettes all the way up the hill, but
You
not
know,
so.
I'm really not one for doing that.
I know that.
Yeah, I've got
So
a kite.
there's a process that I've been using and utilizing in the retreats. If you have a judgment about somebody, which is separateness, try to find something that you can be grateful or appreciative about that person. And it's usually about people. Relationships
Oh, yeah.
are the challenging. So if you find yourself judging yourself, stop for a moment. You don't have to enunciate it, but you can just think about something. You know, I always love the way that guy holds himself. He just has good posture, or just something like that. Or he's got nice wavy black hair. I wish I had that. No, but just find something you can be grateful for or appreciative. And I've noticed for myself and others, 10 to 15 seconds, your whole demeanor changes.
Wow.
There's the tool. There's a workable tool. Just when you find yourself judging about something or somewhere or some situation, find something you can be grateful for. And I get a bit gnarly when the internet breaks down. We've had a good session this time.
We have,
but
actually.
very often it breaks down, and
really
I
does,
get a bit irritated. And then I think, you know, when I first came here and I had a client in Singapore, I would drive or ride the motorbike all the way down to Ubud, half an hour back. They would request something of me. I had no connection at home. I'd go to an internet cafe. I'd send them the material they needed and ride home. I'd get back and they would send some message or a phone call and say, not that document. Can you send the other one? And I have to go all the way down there again. So 2 hours, right? For what was 5 minutes on the internet. And I think I remember those days. So now we've got a little bit unstable internet. And that, whenever I get a little bit gnarly about the internet, I think about those days, and I'm really grateful for what we have got. So it just 10 to 15 seconds, it just changes it, transforms it.
And actually, I remember some of those days myself. And you know what? I actually really was grateful for those internet cafes as well. They're a great place to meet people, aren't they? I mean, all of life is there, aren't they?
Exactly.
Trying to make a connection.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So why, like the title we had for today is why we should be grateful.
Right.
So let's look at that little you know, that puts a different slant on it.
Yes, it does. Well, to be ungrateful means that you're resisting something. You're resisting a reality. And you're putting yourself into a much lower vibrational frequency, right? Which is not healthy for us. And it brings what arises then is judgment and criticism and more separateness. So why we should be grateful, because it is the antidote, one of the antidotes from separateness to being interconnected.
Yes.
And for me, that's, at this stage, this is one of the best antidotes I can think of, because it's simple, it's completely under our control. Do I want to be grumpy? Do I want to be judgmental? Or do I want to feel this is just part of life? Right? This is the reality. And I'm playing this game of life with 8 billion people on this planet. Right?
Yes, yes, you are. It's interesting. Last night on our moonlit walk, our daughter, our 7-year-old daughter Minnie, she made a comment, and she said, "You know what? When you're hating on your parents, you're actually hating on yourself." And I said,
Wow.
tell me more about that, Minnie." And she said, "Well, yeah, because we come from our parents, we're made of our parents. So if we're criticizing our parents and not liking them, there's a part of us that we're not liking." And I was like, whoa.
Whoa.
Because yeah. And so when we are ungrateful about something, like, that really showed me how, from her little young eyes, she could see that we were separating ourselves from goodness. We're
Yes.
separating ourselves from the source of life. We're separating ourselves from the flow of all good things. Um, and so the feeling ungrateful, like you say, is the resistance, which is actually where we started this whole conversation at the start.
Yeah.
Resistance, inner conflict, inner turmoil. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, so if we were to just summarize then, why we should be grateful, it's so that we can stay connected,
Yes.
that we're not doing anything deleterious to our health,
Yes.
um, that we have better relationships with people.
Hmm.
We are, I'm guessing now, we're staying in the flow of our own abundance and well-being.
Yes. We're lifting our vibrational frequency.
Yeah, it feels actually, as I was answering that, I was going up some stairs, actually, getting higher and higher and higher. What would
Yeah.
you add to that?
I would add to this. In fact, little Minnie has given us the answer when she looked at you and said, "I'm from my mum and dad.
Mm,
Um, I'm part of them. They are part of me." Then transpose that to nature. We came from nature.
mhm.
We have the elements of nature, fire, water, earth within us. So we are from nature and we'll go back to nature. And then the thing that comes out of that is that who is creating this reality that
Mm.
we are experiencing,
Yes.
which comes from thoughts. Thoughts become things. Whatever we think will become manifest in the world. So,
Yes.
who is responsible for this reality that is unfolding, whether it's more separateness or whether it's connectedness?
Mhm.
Right? So now we're taking it to the ultimate level of, well, if this is my reality, can I take ownership with it instead of blaming somebody else for the way I'm in, the shape I am in, my life or whatever? I've created this reality that
Yeah.
I really don't. It's really uncomfortable. I really don't want this. Good. What do you want?
Yeah.
Create something different.
Yes.
And now we're connected to our very soul that is in the process of creating, imagining, and intentionally building something within our life.
Yeah. Wow. So gratitude takes you to the source of being a divine creator.
It takes us to the core of who we are. I
Yes.
created this reality. Nobody else created it for me, right? Because I'm experiencing this. It's in
Yeah.
my sphere of influence. It is happening to me and it has come through me and from me. How
Yeah.
can I blame anybody else for that?
Yes.
Right? Got a shitty marriage? Did you agree to get married? Right? Did you say some vows to each other? Do you take responsibility for this?
Yeah.
Right? So everything that is occurring in our sphere of influence, we've created it. And
Yeah.
we are co-creating within the wheel of life, but we're also co-creating with 8 billion people.
Mm.
So every one of us has contributed to the current reality we have, whether it's a war in Yemen, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's this famine, this poverty, drug addiction in Los Angeles,
Mm.
or the beauty side of it as well.
Yeah.
We've all contributed to this, every one of
Yes.
us. We should be grateful for it, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the result of our contribution. If we don't like it, let's change it.
Mm.
Let's change
And
it to something more interconnected.
yes, and you've just given us the key. We create it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like with 8 billion people, if that's how many people there are, of course it's going to get a bit sticky because we're all in different stages of our evolution, all in different stages of our life, and there's all sorts of different ups and downs happening. And you're right. You know, we created this reality on that day when I was cycling up to you. It almost felt like as I was noticing all these wonderful things that I was really enjoying, that life was giving me more to notice. It just felt like I just really couldn't really find anything particularly that I didn't like. And yes, I really did feel like a deliberate creator on that day, which
Yes.
actually, I hope you don't mind me um, kind of segueing this conversation into something else, into a little bit of an advert, because I've been thinking, how do we make a difference? I'd like to see some change in the world, and then sort of feeling like, oh yeah, what difference can I make? And it's the difference in our vibration. And about a month and a half ago, and I know I've already mentioned it to you, I had this thought, I'm really sick of duality. Of course, I realized that, as I said, I was really sick of it. I was creating more of the reality to feel sick of. But I was just thinking, oh God, I just absolutely want to get out of this kind of negativity, not in like an airy fairy, oh, life's so great, but more in a way of like, how can we support each other? How can we come together? And so next Monday, whether I'm ready or not, oh, that was a very life affirming laugh. What's going on behind you? Next
That's
Monday, go on.
Go ahead.
Next,
Go
next
ahead.
next Monday, I'm launching a new show on this channel, the Barefoot Broadcast Show. They sound so joyous. That's so
We're hosting a retreat for 7 amazing ladies here.
Oh my God, you have to
Yeah.
finish off with something about that.
Yeah.
Totally. So I'm launching a show, and I'm gonna have like 2 guests a day, maybe 3, whatever, maybe 1. But the whole idea of it is to have a regular check-in, Monday to Friday, where we just chat and a bit like this, only maybe more people. Carl's going to have a little slot. He's going to bring in some positive news or transformational news, and we'll probably have a little bit of a laugh at the um, new age community a little bit, just poke a little bit of fun, not to get too serious, but the whole thing is I just want to feel uplifted. I want to feel full of vitality and happiness. And I realized from my own very selfish perspective that the best way of doing that was to create that for myself. And I'm hoping you'll come along and join us, as often as you want, whether it's a weekly slot, 2 weeks, whatever works for you. So
I'd be very happy to. Very happy to. So, what your solution from not wanting the duality,
yeah,
right? So then you decided, what do I want? Because you
yeah,
said, I don't want this, which
yeah,
was created more separateness.
yeah,
And that separateness has led you now to creating something is all about interconnectivity with a
yeah,
bunch of people.
yeah,
So
yes,
separateness always leads us to interconnection.
doesn't it?
Yeah. Perfect example.
And it's funny because earlier this year, you and I were having conversations about how we can work more with different generations, and how we can create, we were saying, wouldn't it be great if there was a resource that lots of people could, in particular millennials who may feel like they don't trust any of us older people because they're like, oh, look at this world we've inherited. Um, you know, uh, this has kind of come out as a co-creation from our conversations and conversations I've had with Carl. And I see more and more people doing it, which actually to me is saying it's needed. A place for people to hang out and have fun and to learn from each other. And I think we're going to start each show just with getting it out on the table. So if we need to have a moan, let's have a quick moan, but we restrict it. And then we get on and
Yes.
and start to
like
have
a check-in. How are you doing?
yeah.
And it could be a moan, or it could be something really uplifting.
Yes, it really could. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm hoping for lots of real life stories and just lots of fun and lightheartedness. Anyway,
lovely.
um, we're coming to
We've
the end.
run out of time.
Yes, but you know what? We can never run out of time because we are eternal beings, aren't we, Rick? So
Indeed.
you've got a retreat going on there at the moment. Do you want to just share something?
Yeah, just very quickly, because a lady 3 years ago booked a retreat with us,
Yeah.
and then COVID came, and she
Oh,
just
yeah.
hung in. She just kept in touch, asking how things are going once the doors were open, and she arrived yesterday with
Wow. 3 years later.
six lovely ladies, some business entrepreneurs, a mix of them. I haven't had a conversation with each of them yet, but they did a lovely fire ceremony under the full moon last night, and there's lots of laughter and joyous people around. So it's
Wow.
lovely to be back into that mode again.
Yes.
Retreating.
Are you doing more weddings now as well at your beautiful?
No, I haven't done one for ages. But I may do a satsang with this group. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds really uplifting too. Well, I think it's time to draw this to a close. I'm not sure if this show, as we have it, is going to exist once I start my real one. I'm still
Right.
open to it, but it might be a bit more than I can chew. But
Yes.
will you join me next week? It'll be at
same time.
no, it's going to be at a slightly later time. It'll be a 10 o'clock start for me.
Okay. So
But
it was 7, wasn't it?
So that's an extra 3 hours.
Yeah, so
If it's
6.
Is that gonna work?
Let's give it a try. Yeah, I usually try and get out of the office because the kids get home at 4, so I need to spend some time with them. But if it's once a week, it's not a problem.
Excellent.
So let's give it a try.
And if not, maybe we could pre-record something and add it in. So
yep.
But I'm actually hoping, that I can have you in a conversation with other people as well, because I think I think there's so much. I mean, I've seen you in action, and I know that you're. I don't know. I mean, what I get from you, I feel is 100% you, and I also know the magic of you when there's a group as well. So.
Thank you. Well, you're a great facilitator, and you bring the best out of me. So it's a two-way street.
Oh, isn't it just? Well, I'm so grateful for that.
Me too.
Right, let's draw this to a close then. Thank you so much for joining me once again, Rick. It's really special what we do, and it's life transforming.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful for you in my life.
And I cherish these conversations. It gives rise for me to come up with an answer or to share what I have experienced. So I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Yes. And for anyone that's watched today, I know we've had comments from Owen. In fact, he's just shared a message saying, grateful for today's show. Thank you both. Have a wonderful weekend. You too, my brother.
Thank you, Owen.
Yeah, see you soon and speak to you soon, Owen. And for everyone else that's listening anywhere, wherever you are in the world, whether you're listening live or on catch up, please do stay connected to us. How can people reach you if they want to reach you?
Via my website, rickpursell.com.
Fantastic. Okay, then. Right. Lots of love to you all then.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. And hopefully we can all connect again real soon. Bye for now.
And hopefully we can all be very grateful for our lives.
Yes.
Ciao.